Hey, you guys, welcome back. We are so excited that you're back to this amazing workshop that we have the special guest and the honor of speaking with Alexis Denise. If you are looking at this, you would have taken our course, all right, where we spoke about why hire a floral designer and why work with a floral designer. So this is the course where we are going to get the opportunity to have an immersive experience of floral design from Alexis Denise. So we're going to give her the floor and she's going to surprise us with a floral installation live. That's right. Enjoy. Alexis, take it all away.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. I hope that you are as excited as I am. Before we get into the arrangement, I am going to walk you around some of the essentials that I always keep in doing any types of flower arranging, let it be for a small event like a baby shower or a bridal shower, you name it, small or large. If it's a special event or a wedding, I definitely like to keep some of the same tools and hard goods around me. So with regards to tools and what we're going to be working with, I love these. These are my ARS shears. They are extremely, extremely sharp. This is something that I always like to use when I'm prepping and processing flowers, removing them from their packages, clipping off the stems before we quick dip them and put them into the bucket so that they can start to condition. That's a favorite. I also like the Japanese floral scissors. And so these are things you can either get online at Amazon. You can also get it from your local florist or wholesaler, for supplies. So we're going to be working with those. I like the Japanese scissors because depending on the arrangement and the type of flowers that you're using, some of the flowers or the blooms may have like a hardier stem. So for an example, hydrangeas, when you open those up out of their packages, again, they can get a little bulky at the bottom. Chrysanthemums, we'll take a look and I'll show you what those look like. But I love, love, love these for a lot of the, again, flowers that have those hardy, very strong branches that we want to get to and still use in our arrangement. I don't go anywhere without this. All right, so this is your green florist tape. You're going to see how I'm using this. Today, we're going to actually do I'd say a foam-free arrangement. In the flower world, you'll see a lot of florists and floral designers who rely on Oasis floral foam, those green bricks. They're wonderful. I still use them in my business. I am not 100% foam free. In terms of arrangements such as the ones that we're going to design together, I basically stick to the grid method, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I love this type of florist tape because it is waterproof. So when you're using it on your vases, again, you're obviously going to be putting some water into your arrangement, or if you're transporting them, you want to be sure that everything arrives just as you designed it. So I love the waterproof floral tape for that reason, because it is very adhesive. It helps keeps the designs together and definitely has no issues with water. Another option that you have is basically this type of waterproof tape. You can't see closely, but it's a clear type of transparent tape that actually has kind of filters in there or fibers. So that's another good thing. I have a preference for using the green waterproof tape because it just gives you a better hold versus the transparent tape. So even on vases such as this one, so we're going to get into this next, but in terms of this black vase, I know that's the first thing that you're noticing. It's okay, no biggie. If we are designing for balance and composition, you'll see how once I get through the arrangement, we're going to be sure that that's not seen. So waterproof tape, whether it's green or transparent, is something that's also great that I like to have. And the last thing that I'm going to just give you a heads up of is basically ribbon leaf. So I love fresh floral decor, and I say that, I prefer to use fresh florals. In the fresh floral world, or if you are in the wholesale flower market and you're looking for this is aspidistra leaf, if it is in its live natural format. But if it's not, you can actually get this, which is called ribbon leaf, from Amazon and wherever you can get floral supplies. If you are not using a vase that is ceramic or that's colored, so this is pretty signature for 80 Florals. From a branding standpoint, I am a lot about black, white, and a tad bit of blue. So even in our arrangement styles, I like to incorporate that into the flowers. But just know, if you were using a cylinder vase, if you were using a cube vase that's completely clear, some people aren't a fan of, right, the water and the stems being seen. So the cool thing about using a clear vase and pairing it with aspidistra, you can use, which is definitely pricey, but this is a more affordable option, right? The ribbon leaf is something that you actually can place down into, right, the arrangement. Obviously you can't see it, but again, I like to do that, and it's just some variation. Okay, sometimes you may not always have the color vase that you need. Sometimes the client may have a preference for only using clear vases, and then some people are just very particular that they like the clear vase, but they don't want to see the stems. So this is a really cool feature to do that. Essentially, I think that is it. In terms of vase arrangements, that's how I started out with doing my small events, using the 4x4s, okay, or the 5x5s. So here is probably one of my favorites. It's a beveled black mirrored vase, and this is considered a 5x5. And this is a little larger. I'm sorry, this is a 4x4 and this is a 5x5. So in your event work, this is perfect. I probably would stick with the 5x5 vase if you're working with tables, especially rounds that are like 60 or 72. Definitely ample, and not something that's going to get lost. I usually try to stay away from the 4x4s for the large reception tables. Something like this, sometimes I would put on a cocktail table during cocktail hour, or maybe like a small arrangement that's in a bathroom. So essentially that is all that I am using. All of the flowers that I'm working with have been conditioned. So I got them from the wholesaler today. They're really fresh. Let's go ahead and walk you around what we're going to be using. We'll get to these in just a second. Okay, in terms of your focal flowers, okay, things that we're going to be working with. Take this one from the back. Right, so this is a chrysanthemum, okay, and it's a very full type of bloom. When you're doing flower arranging, just know that you're going to be working with your focal flowers, which are ones that are really large, that's going to attract your person's eye, right, to the arrangement. I'm going to show you what some smaller ones are looking like, but going back to this, I love mums. They are very long lasting. So if you are doing, let's say, I mean, even if some people have some plans in doing a subscription service, right, and just doing kind of weekly or bi-weekly subscriptions to people's homes, I am not opposed to using chrysanthemums because they definitely are longer lasting blooms. And as I mentioned, okay, when using the flowers to cut these, or using the scissors to cut these, I'm always going to use the Japanese scissors because they are way sharper. If you can see, chrysanthemums definitely have like a woodier, kind of harder stem. Okay, so we're going to be working with chrysanthemums, and this again, one of our focal flowers. Okay, when we're going a little smaller than the focal flower, right, those would be things such as your carnations. So I love these magenta. Some of them may not make the journey. That's okay. But I'm going to be working with these magenta carnations. Okay. And again, carnations are very long lasting. Sometimes they get a bad rap. I don't think that they should. I am a proponent of carnations because they save our lives, right? If you're a florist and there's some type of flower shortage, you can always find carnations readily available in a variety of colors that can always save the day and still create the look, that aesthetic that the client's looking for. So if you are fancy like me, don't call them carnations anymore. Call them French dianthus. Okay. So yes, working with carnations or French dianthus. The other type of accent flower is going to be the Nina Rose. Okay, it's going to be the Nina Rose. And again, this is really a standard rose. It's funny, I went to the flower market today and I'm like, be intentional, Alexis. Design with anything but roses. I love roses. Again, roses are going to be very available, but in terms of the clientele that you may be looking for, right? People that are willing to spend more money, clients who are expecting a certain aesthetic with maybe a higher end flower, roses are okay. but if you can present your arrangements with a variety of flowers, unlike roses, that already sets you out. So I'm going to put 2 or 3 of them in here. I'm not going to go crazy because I intentionally wanted to just come up with something very dope, very beautiful, right? That did not rely on what we rely on in the flower industry a lot, roses. There are other types of blooms. A resource that I have on my website that is very, very helpful for weddings and couples is the 10 most popular wedding flowers. Roses are great. They're standard. However, there's a bunch of other varieties that are, available during different times. All right. So again, accent flower, which is slightly smaller than your focal flower, is what we're going to be putting into this arrangement. I want to go on to another long-lasting flower, which is this one. Okay, so I believe that they're also called Peruvian lilies, but I like to know these as astromerias. So again, a longer lasting flower. It's cool because this particular flower, right, it's one stem, okay, but it has several smaller blooms. So once you get into your flower arranging, right, you'll knock out the arrangement. It looks great, but there's some sparse areas and some spaces. And astromeria is something that would be great to be a filler. Okay, moving on, there are now, these are probably my very favorite ones, snapdragons. Okay, so we're going to be using snapdragons. These are considered line flowers, right? So you can see in the shape that it has, right, the shape of a line. So a lot of times when you're building out arrangements, it's nice to, I have my own process, but in addition to starting with greening them, the other thing that I like to do is start with using the line flowers, because those can be, right, used to kind of give your arrangement some shape. You're kind of framing it out. Okay, so that's a really good way, especially for new beginners, to kind of get that shape that you may or may not be looking for. But again, I'm doing this position because this is a technique that I use if I'm using bridal or doing my bridal bouquets, so again, just kind of framing, okay, the bride, and she not being overpowered, and that, it's not taking up. I'll do things like this, actually start that hand tie bouquet right about here. And it's good for even demonstrating for her kind of where and how to hold her bouquet throughout the day. All right, so that's an example of a line flower, which are snapdragons. And in keeping with the line flower and filler, I'm also going to be using goldenrod. So you may hear it called goldenrod or solidago, but again, when using your arrangements, this is a great way to finish it off. It is considered a filler flower, right? Not so big and kind of round like the focal and the accent, but again, similar to the shape of the snapdragon in that line, but we do consider this a filler. Okay. Lastly, I won't take them out of their vases, but I'm going to tip them over so that you can see. When I do any types of arrangements, I like to start with greening them out first. So by that is my kind of initial step with filling up that vase with the baseline or the foundation of greenery. The greenery is going to be great for keeping that design cohesive. And again, if you're transporting things, you are very happy to have greenery at the bottom of it, because again, it just kind of keeps it in place. So Karmisha, I had to do something special for us, right? Spring is on its way in a few weeks. So I wanted to just go with colors that were very lively, and some unusual blooms that you may not always see. And that I have to now introduce you to. You know what, maybe I will take a little bit of them out, but this is spiral eucalyptus. Okay, so this is spiral eucalyptus. The magic with spiral eucalyptus is when you're prepping it, but when you actually take some of the petals off, that's when you get all of the fragrance, right? So you get the vibrancy of it, but you get the fragrance and it smells amazing. So some people are not about the arrangements. They don't care about bouquets. Some people actually are like, just give me a bunch of eucalyptus, and they actually will take those stems off. They can tilt it upside down and hold it over the shower. And the cool thing about it is that it actually will release kind of the oils, the natural oils that are in it. And it kind of has that cooling effect like menthol or anything that has camphor in it, that can aid with any types of chest congestion, you name it. So I like spiral eucalyptus. It is very fragrant, and you may not be able to see so much up close, but this was like some specialty version that has like speckled white paint. It's giving me 90s vibe, a little bit of your neon orange and pinks. So again, to give this arrangement some fragrance and some texture, because you can definitely hear eucalyptus especially when it dries out, when you're holding it. That's the other type. Lastly, take a look at ruscus. So Italian ruscus is a really great type of greenery to use. Okay, again, if you're looking to give any of your arrangements some type of shape, it's great. Very pliable and bendable. So on another day and time, we are going to get into fresh flower crowns, right? Italian ruscus is definitely one of my favorite types of greens. All right, so if you have any questions, we're going to get to them, but let's go ahead and start getting the arrangement going. The first thing is that we're going to green up and green out. And again, I called your attention to the vases. 5x5s are great. Okay, I just like the shape. I like the color, but I don't want to go with such a tiny arrangement. I'm going to put this behind me and bring your attention to the larger one. Okay, so again, this is a black beveled 5x5 mirror. And I love this. I'm going to tilt it over and save us some time and show you that I've created a grid. So this is where, we're talking about a foam-free type of arrangement. The Oasis foam is wonderful. However, again, it is serving as a water source. So if you don't know, you probably do, because I think I'm talking to a lot of event planners and designers, right? That Oasis has to be soaked thoroughly so that wherever it's going to be placed, whether it's in a vase or if it's in an installation, right? It has to be soaked thoroughly so that once the flower is speared through it, it has a water source. So again, it serves a great purpose and it can keep installations from falling apart. But I'm not going to use that with this particular arrangement. I'm going to go ahead and use what I call the grid method. So going back to the tape that I talked about that I love so much, right? All I basically did was take the waterproof tape, the green, because that's the most adhesive for me anyway. And I basically created a tic-tac-toe grid. So this is a lot. I probably would suggest that you stick to no more than 3 across, 3 at the bottom, because you don't want to create, right, something that's a little too restrictive. And for some of the flowers like the chrysanthemum, it is going to give you hell to try to put that in. So when you're doing your grid work, it is okay to do at least 3 across, 3 the other direction. If you start doing more than that, good luck. Okay, and you're going to find that if you're doing floral work, you're going to be pressed for time and you just have to keep these things going. So yeah, we'll talk about that. But in wedding work and in any of my events that I'm doing flowers for, this is work that you can do a week in advance, right? You can go to wherever you are, your floral studio, and you can grid up and actually add your water and actually add your floral food or your flower food to it. And then once you actually pick up your flowers in their process, you can go ahead and start to design. So the first step is gridding, right? Taking care of the grid method. Before we green up, I'm going to grab some water. Easiest way to do it now. And I'm going to pour that in. I usually don't go, especially with 5x5 vases, maybe 3/4. I wouldn't even go to the 50% mark because again, you just want to be sure that these arrangements aren't going to get so heavy. So usually I'll start with a very little amount of water, just enough that the stems that are going to make contact. And then once I get to the event, wherever I am in the venue, once they're placed out on the tables or where it should be, right, we go ahead and just basically top it off. Okay, so that's the next step. The other thing that you can do, I've already done it for you, or steps before, is put your flower food in. So I know that we had gotten a couple of questions about the types of flower food. Floral Products or Floral Life, a really great brand that I like to use in my arrangements, but Floral Life basically puts out a great flower food. And they also put out another product. You can't see it here. I just put it in a typical spray bottle that I got from Amazon, but they also have another product that's called Crown and Glory. So after you finish your arrangement, I always hit my arrangement up with Crown and Glory because it's a hydration spray and it basically locks that moisture in. and kind of helps prevent, some of the withering that could happen if it's a really hot day. All right, so you add your flower food to it. We're all gridded up, so to speak, for lack of a better term. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and start with greening out and adding our eucalyptus. So the good thing about floral arrangements is that it does not have to be perfect, right? Even the flowers that we see in nature, they do not exist in a perfect way, So I tell people that flower arranging is definitely about balance and composition, okay? What you do on one side is what you do on the other side, right? Such that you can create some symmetry if you want to, but it's not about being perfect, okay? Because usually in the flower business, you need to be done at a certain point. So perfection is cool, but depending on how many centerpieces that you have to do, you can't spend all of your time there. So yeah, that's what I'm basically doing. You need to be here to smell this. Like I said, as soon as I take off a couple of those leaves, it is very, very fragrant. So I'm adding the eucalyptus, and as mentioned, it's hardy, it's fragrant, it's going to keep the arrangement in place. Okay, and this is not about perfection. We just basically want to have enough of the greenery there so that once we start building and adding the other flowers, they're more or less anchored in.
Alexis, this is so beautiful. I'm just like in awe.
Perfect. I am happy when you're happy. So that's good stuff. Yeah, flower arranging is not about perfection. That is the one thing I should, scream to the hills. The other thing that I didn't show you that I can, but you probably know what it is another helpful tip for designing your flowers such that you can get a 360 view is actually using a, let's see if I can show you. I can show you, right? It's actually using what's called a Lazy Susan.
Oh.
So here it is, right? This is a very large, I don't know what the dimensions are, and you can definitely get this off of Amazon. A lot of people will use it inside of their cabinets and they'll put like the spices on, kind of like a spice rack. But the cool thing is that it rotates, so instead of needing to constantly turn,
right.
Instead of needing to constantly turn, okay, your arrangement like this,
right?
Even now, I'm like, how my table doesn't fall, right? So to avoid falling tables and ruined vases, I always like to design because it's a convenience, to have, and so that you can quickly check what am I doing on one side that needs to look the same on the other, and just kind of keeps the flower arranging going. Karmisha, did you have any questions?
Well, we have tons of questions from our students, so we are definitely going to save that to the end. But I did have a question about teamwork. As I'm looking at this demonstration, it just kind of like pushed me to ask, how is the teamwork? Because this is a lot of work. So how is your team when you're working with those, like you mentioned, the full service package that you normally provide your clients? How does that work?
It can be very intense, especially when we're on site and we're working with each other to basically get whatever it is that we need to get finished, like a ceremony arch, right? Like some type of hanging installation. It can get intense, but the good thing is that we start the conversations before we get there. So for wedding work and for any amount of any type of project that involves just a lot of moving parts, installations, highs, lows, you name it, garlands, I like to basically put a production schedule in place. So a week before, I'll basically create this document that highlights the logistics of the event, start, end time, if there is a ceremony flip, when we're doing that, what we're doing. It'll give me a breakdown of who's going to be on. So I work with a lot of freelancers, and could legitimately be people who have their own businesses, and that's fine. But again, who are specialized in what it is that we need to do. And so from there, that gives a lot of the direction, right? For what time we need to pick up flowers, what time we need to get to the venue. And once we get there, we have just a group powwow, like, hey, this is it, game time. Don't screw this up, right? And it's a countdown, and we want the client satisfied. So we have that powwow. And then at that point, it's like, listen, I'm going to do the installation. There'll be 2 of us there. You guys head on over to the ballroom, start putting out all of the ceremony pieces, whatever. And we just kind of break it up. And that's about it. You know, when we have any types of issues, we're always calling each other over. I like walkies. My father, he thinks he knows more about flowers than me. But he had that recommendation, like, Alexis, when you're outdoors and doing outdoor events, you know, it gets a little tricky. So we also use walkies so that we can communicate and be in touch with one another.
Got it. Got it. So how did that deal, that partnership that you have with Hudson Yards, how did that come about? Like, how were you contacted to provide them with an installation?
So really great question. Trying to think of, I can't think of the name of the event at the moment. I can think of the company. So Floral is a Canadian-based, basically flower show that travels. So 6 degrees of separation, and how I got invited to that was that event happened in October of last year. But before that, I ended up getting asked to participate in the Leaf Flower Festival. So if you're interested, look up Leaf Flower Festival. You're going to see this really great New York Times article that highlights what happened. In a nutshell, just a couple of organizers came together because flower shows are a really big deal, as you may know, in Europe, in terms of them being immersive and just kind of being these over-the-top designs, you know, by some of the greatest and latest floral designers. It's a big deal. So these organizers are like, listen, we want to bring something like this to New York. And it was intended to happen in 2020, but we all know that 2020 had some different plans. So it didn't happen that year. But in 2021, June, they basically said, Alexis, we would love to have, you know, local floral designers from New York City participate. And we want you to participate in one of our market stands. So you can sell your wares, whatever you want to sell, doesn't matter. And it is going to be totally free. I'm like, what? For real? Right? So the cost of entry was $0. And that was, again, a big way of kind of getting the floral industry jump started from what we had experienced. So I'm going to continue to talk, but at this point I am greened up, and I've added, right, a mix of the Italian ruscus, and that's what you'll see here in green, and then also, right, the spiral eucalyptus. So I know some of you are probably concerned, like, oh my gosh, did she not see that? I know, right? So the good thing about this arrangement is that before we're finished, we're going to take care of that with adding the filler flowers. But that's what you want to be mindful of, okay? That you always cover up your handiwork underneath, because that is not what you want people to see, especially if they're at tables. All right, so we basically have now gotten the greenery in. We're greened up. I'm going to start off with the chrysanthemums, right, are really large focal flowers. And going back to the Leaf Festival, it was amazing. It was a 2-day show where we could sell our wares, and I did exactly that. I had a great experience with hand tides. So I probably like hand tied arrangements because at flower pop-ups or at those market stands, nobody's carrying vases. It's like, girl, I'm getting ready to go to West 8th Street. I have a date. I'm not carrying that. But right, they really liked the hand tied bouquets. So I did my thing, did a ton of hand tied bouquets, and I also had the florista merch. So the tote bags, they went really well. Still adding the chrysanthemum. Tote bags went really well. Okay, so I'm just looking to balance this out. It's okay, right? So when doing your arrangements, you also want to kind of figure out where the sparse areas are. And from your view, it may not look completed, and that's the case. But from the top, you just want to fill in where those sparse areas are. So fast forward, I did the market stand in June of 2021. And then by the end of the summer, this next organization said, hey, Alexis, we got your information from, the Leaf Flower Festival. We know that you participated. Listen, we're doing an immersive flower show, and we'd love to have you participate. And I'm like, what? You're the right person? Like, yeah. And so that was a very, very new experience. And in a nutshell, like I said, or I mentioned in our earlier conversation, it was us designing our own 8-foot standing mannequin. So those standing mannequins that you see at Macy's and JCPenney, the goal here was to basically design one that was paying tribute to breast cancer survivors. So the event was called Rosé, and anyone that participated basically was asked to do an installation, and it be, you know, filled with pink flowers and anything that would, again, bring attention to breast cancer awareness and so forth. So that was the most scariest thing that I had ever decided to do in my business.
Wow.
I'm glad that I did. But it was a lot of maintenance. It was a 10-day flower show, and you had to come back every other day to make sure that your mannequin was refreshed. It was quite the experience.
Wow, that's amazing. May I ask why was it scary for you? Why was it scary?
Because it wasn't wedding work. Like, it was installation work, yes, but it was scary because it wasn't wedding work. It wasn't, hey, I need you to do 2,000 boutonnieres and 400 installations that are hanging. And it was, figure it out. You let us know, right? You're the professional. You work with flowers. We just want to see what you come up with. So it was scary for that reason, because you're designing on a medium that you had never, ever worked on before. And the fact that it was literally in a place that a lot of people hang out and frolic and collect. I'm like, what? And so when I got there on site, craziest thing, I'll never forget that night, we check in and they're like, yeah. You're down this corridor here, there, everywhere. And I'm like, all right, cool. We get there and the mannequin, or where we were located, was in front of Tiffany's.
That's when we talk about Black excellence.
Right, you just got to get it together at that point. Like, I know you're scared, but damn it, people going into Tiffany's are going to see this. So you need to get it together.
That's amazing. Talk about possibility. And just, you know, and just being ready for the opportunity. I think that's most important as we even speak about that, right? It's like being ready for the opportunity. You can be scared, but you have to be ready. You have to be ready for the opportunity. Absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing. So I'm so happy that my students and folks are listening to this, because this is exactly what we talk about: preparation and investing in your education, right? This is amazing. Wow. And you just have to take the lead. It's just as it's as simple as it can be. You have to take the lead so that you can know what your limitations are. You don't have any, baby. There are no limits. We are without a roof out here, but you need to know, you know, what you can achieve. You need to lean in and feel that nervousness of, oh God, I can't believe it. Because out of that comes growth. And now, if anybody asks me to, like, girl, you want to go to London? You know that flower show in London? Guess who's going? There, Karmisha and Alexis.
There it is. We are in the building, because, again, that's exactly how we build our experiences, right? We get through those challenges, we experience what we need, and it propels us and we grow. That's a really great question. So this is a lot of fun. Yes. And I can say that because it is very garden style, it's very flower centric. We didn't do a lot of greenery, but the other thing that I've started adding in is our snapdragon. Okay, so snapdragons, you got to be careful. I usually like to cut them a little shorter than what they are, because if you leave them too long, then you have like an antenna situation. So I like to use snapdragons in order to kind of balance out the arrangement, especially where you see some of the sparse holes and stuff like that. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, so we're getting there slowly but surely, and it's not about perfection, right? It's not about perfection. It's about balance and composition, you know? So you just want to have I want to have this kind of balanced mix of where the colors are, but there's a lot of gorgeousness going on in here.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous.
Don't be. We need to do something else for the spring. Yes. So I'm going to move on and keep moving on to show you how I'm going to place the Astromeria. Okay. So again, these are a great type of filler, because it has, check it out. Because it has, right, several heads. So again, it does, here I'm trying to point, right? It does a lot of the work for you.
Got it.
Okay. So another area here in the arrangement, you can't see it, but it's going to be in the center. I'm definitely going to put one of those up there. Yeah, not about perfection. It is just about balance and composition.
Wow.
I hope the light isn't too harsh, because if it is, we can turn it down a little bit.
No, I think it's fine.
Good. Okay.
So what are some proper flower handling techniques? What are some proper flower handling techniques?
So that's a really great question. For an example, a flower like this is the astromeria is very delicate at the top. So doing things such as putting an arrangement together and doing this, right?
No good.
Because it's just way too much tension that's being put on the top of it, and you don't want the blooms to pop off. So you're going to find that when you start processing your own flowers, don't over order and go crazy, but order, a few, because sometimes in transit, things are going to be popped off. It's okay, but use everything, right? So again, a head, because I had one of the rose head pops, so that's okay. A head will pop off, but in wedding work, no, we can use that. That's a boutonniere. Okay, so that's really important. If handling flowers, you want to be sure to not hold them that way, but if you can, and it's a very hardy and a very solid type of stem, like the astromeria, that you're actually going to place it in as if it were like a pen or some type of writing instrument. So that's also key. Another great tip is that anytime you're processing your flowers, never cut them this way. I mean, you can, not the biggest deal if you do cut it this way, but ideally you want to cut that flower stem on an angle. Slant. And you can't see it, but the point of doing it on the slant is that you actually expose more surface area, right? As opposed to just, more of the flower is exposed, and it could actually uptake and drink water and last and stay hydrated. So that's another. Okay. And then the third thing I'll mention, I'm actually gonna give you 4. Why not? All right. So in terms of roses, they never look like this. They never look like this when they are packaged. They are a hot mess. They are like this. So when you get them out of your packaging, the first thing that I do is, again, give it that horizontal snip. Okay. I do also quick dip. So quick dip, it smells a lot like rubbing alcohol, but it is a solution that basically, allows the flower to basically get very, very quickly hydrated so that they open up. So quick dip is literally a step 2. You give it a snip, quick dip, and then you put it into the bucket of fresh water so that eventually it's going to look like this. It'll have a very large head. To achieve this, think about the Karate Kid, okay? And it's not exactly an instrument, but if you turn it upside down and just literally roll it back in between the palms, that can open it up. And then blowing into it, okay? And then also just inserting your finger and just kind of separating it. Not the biggest deal, but in wedding work and when you're working on arrangements that are going to be photographed, again, all of that stuff is contributing to a really great day, and you want the blooms to be as forward facing and open as they possibly can. Gosh, so that's a really great question.
Wow.
So
Alexis, we have a few questions from our students, and I feel like now is a good time to ask them. Is that okay with you?
That is totally okay. Let's do it.
All right. So one of the questions that was asked was, which adhesive are least damaging to flowers? I'll read that again. Which adhesive are at least damaging to flowers?
So I love working with live florals, and obviously they're not 100% live by the time that we get them. They do have some life to them even after, but in preserving them and allowing them to last longer, I would avoid, if you can, using a hot glue gun. I've used it before. Yes, guilty as charged. Sometimes I have made, and in a hurry. So that's another reason why I don't want to take on last minute clients. I don't want to take on people that I'm like, oh, okay, great. You hired me, but now I have to scramble to find, and I have some tight debt, because when you rush, then you have to use things like that so that it's intact, because you do not want a corsage or a boutonniere that's ordered gets there, and after 2 seconds, it falls apart. It's embarrassing. That is not good work, you know? Right. So the craftsmanship is just as important as how they look. But if you're going to go with any types of adhesive, definitely Oasis brand. So the Oasis brand, they actually have what's called a floral adhesive, and it is a very, very nice, strong adhesive that you can use right out of the tube or right out of the bottle. And it's great for corsage work, but does not involve any types of damaging heat. So if you're ever looking for that good adhesive, start early, start on time so that you do not have to rush your masterpieces. But Oasis is the brand, and literally it's called floral adhesive. Usually comes in a white tin or a tube, and yeah, you're good to go.
Got it. Thank you. So we are looking good. We are looking good. So the next question that was asked is, what is one thing? Oh, this is a good question. What is one thing your customers thank you for? I know a plethora of things, but what would you say is one thing that your customers will thank you for?
So the overarching thing that I hear a lot of is, Alexis, you made me feel. You would think that people are going to compliment you about the designs, that they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so wow, this is so dope. They do that. But when I read testimonies and when I hear conversations of what they told someone else, it was like, Alexis made me feel like she genuinely cared about the execution of the flowers, and that she cared about me. It was like, you are like a homegirl that I, have, but I got an extra one because I hired you as my wedding florist, or, the floral designer. So that's interesting. And I didn't take on to that until recently in demanding reviews, because that's how they drive our business, and getting that feedback like, wow, it wasn't even about the flowers. Okay. But it's important that your customers feel, and your clients, that they are like family, or at least that temporary family member who's with you until that day is executed. You're rocking with each other the entire time, right? You're calling, oh my gosh, Alexis, you wouldn't believe the venue can't get this colored tablecloth. Is that gonna throw everything off? No, we're good. So having a relationship with clients, throughout the process, before, that's the feedback that I've gotten a lot. Alexis, you just made me feel good. You were there. It wasn't an assistant. You were the person that was involved.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's key. I recently did an event with a client, and she literally reached out to me and she said the same thing. She said, you made me feel so great. You made me feel so like you were so attentive to my needs. You walked me through the process. You explained the process. And so I think that's key when we are, when you're working with people such as us, with professionals that really love what we do, and it shows. And it shows, and it also has to exude in our work as well. So I think that is key.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. This is a great question. What is your business known for? What is your business known for?
Full service.
Full service. Starting at 5K.
Yeah. Full service. But no, definitely flower-centric designs, right? At the end of the day, I enjoy bringing the beauty of flowers indoors and just kind of presenting it in a way that is visually pleasing, right? And is a nice aesthetic for people to look at while they're at a reception. So again, if you leave it up to me, I'd give you all 100% florals and very little greenery. But yeah, flower centric, very full, inorganic. I am by far the most imperfect being that I could ever be. And I have no shame in saying that, right? My flowers don't have to be perfect. They can also be imperfect. And like I said, they exist in nature, not perfect, Right. So even that type of look with the florals is another kind of key aesthetic that people know AD Florals for.
Got it. Yes, it's funny. I do know your work when I see it. You have that kind of specific look. So yeah,
that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Let me know if it falls below standard, because
right.
Yeah, I'd have to get to that root
That's
problem.
not gonna happen anytime soon.
But
know what? Let's talk about that. It's funny you said that because, a part of business is scaling your business. So how does that work in your field, right? How can you scale what you do? Because I'm looking at this installation that you're doing for us, and it's so detailed. So how can you grow your floral business to where you want it to be, like in terms of scale and in terms of, bringing on additional support and keeping that same tact, that same look, right? That same trademark. How is that? And are you in that phase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I've heard event planners, right, like yourself, some of my frienders and event planners say, Alexis, it's interesting. I like working with you because I know every time that we work together, we're going to get something that's different and it's not so cookie cutter. But even in my contracts, I love my frienders and vendors and people say, even in my contract, like we have to legally protect our business, right, from some of the issues that can arise. And so I'm using this person as an example. She says, Alexis, it's in my contract that as an event planner, people can come to me with all kinds of, Pinterest inspo pictures, but, I give something similar to that aesthetic, but not duplicating it. Right. And I'm like, wow, even event planners have that type of clause. That's awesome. Right. With me, I have a clause as a floral designer that yes, right, your flowers are going to be designed with the utmost, right, attention to detail. And if there are some flower substitutions that we have to make because this particular flower isn't available, right, if that happens, again, with the utmost quality, it's going to be happening, right? You're going to get gorgeous flowers, but there are moments that sometimes Alexis Denise is going through.
Yes.
She's sick. She may have COVID, right? It may be Omicron. It may be Omarion, whatever that variant is. I'm waiting for the P. I'm just like, oh gosh. I'm boosted and I'm waiting for the P. But saying all of that to say this, in order to scale, you have to be able to even take yourself out of the work. So clients can love your aesthetic, but you still can deliver it to the client and it not be you. Because you're tapping in freelancers with experience. You're tapping in other people that are very, they have that same eye and keen detail that you have. And all you need to do is just create, right, the Picasso, and then you have them do it. And again, it's not about, oh, I'm too good. And sometimes you are going to get sick. And as solopreneurs, what do you do when that client has signed a contract and yet you now can't deliver on services because you physically can't? Being able to tap someone else in and have like a network of people that are going to do the same level of work and it looks similar, if not, actually the same, that's important. So for me, learning how to scale is getting other freelancers that can help in the event that you can't make it, in the event that something comes up, or in the event that you make so much money, Lex, that you're doing more than one event in a day. You can't be two places at once, but you can be at one place, right? Tag your other team members to go in to do the other site. So that's important for scaling. In a nutshell, hiring people that can do your same level of work, duplicate it, so that if something happens, they have someone now who's going to do that, and the client still has that expectation, gets what they paid for. And eventually you may want to not be in the business, right? You may just want to be focusing on funding opportunities or partnerships. Take yourself out of that equation, but definitely hiring people and thinking about what you're going to pay them, right? So again, taking myself out of the equation is important if I want more time and freedom and stuff like that. But if taking me out means I need to have two other people at X number of hours and that rate, it has to be reflective of the prices.
Yes.
Because if not, you're an intern and you're just not making money.
Gotcha. So now I think, what stage are we at with the installation? Because it looks final to me. So what stage is this?
It does. So for the most part, I have put all of the flowers in that we have, right? So you'll see the chrysanthemums are here. the snapdragons. This is the eucalyptus. You'll see so in terms of all of the flowers that are used, it's there, right? And finishing this off, you will see, I'll turn this way, right? And finishing it off, I'm looking for the sparse areas and basically filling that in with the goldenrod or the solidago.
Got it.
And again, if you are needing to cover any that is being seen, that tape, you can just go in with the extra greenery that you may have available, because that'll totally hide everything. And then once you're finished, you can get your hydration spray. I just put this in a regular bottle, like I mentioned, but this is why I also like the turntable, because then you can just do this, right? So I'm just giving it a quick hydration spray. It'll lock in the moisture. And then if I were transporting this, it's good to go.
Wow. Do you cover it while you're transporting it, or you transport it as open as how it is?
So usually I will pack it down with actual carry trays. So I don't have one with me, but if you're ever interested, Pop and Go, it is a type of, it's a US actual company, and they do all kinds of carry trays, but it's a cardboard carry tray that I'll basically place some craft paper at the bottom of and kind of around the vase. This way it's not going to shift, and that's it. Pop it in there, go, and it's great because they don't tip over.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. All right. So we have two more questions.
Perfect.
One question is pertaining to how would you deliver heat-sensitive flowers? How would you deliver heat-sensitive flowers?
So heat-sensitive flowers should definitely be delivered in a van or any of the types of transportation that you're traveling in, or taking it, has to be AC blast, right? AC blasted. I mean, again, some people are in their businesses where their actual transportation is equipped with kind of refrigeration, similar to what you would feel if you put the flowers in a refrigerator. But if you don't have one, just having the AC up, full blast, that's important. Advocating that clients not use hydrangeas, especially for summer weddings, August, July, it's really hot. Hydrangeas are great, but I would keep them out of the indoors. And if you're doing any outdoor, I would keep them away from outdoors. And if you're doing any outdoor events, making sure that you're using the hydration sprays, that's helpful. Making sure that you are conditioning them maybe a week before so that they have kind of the nutrients to hold up. Always keeping them out of the sun. So when you get on site and you're ready to go into the venue, best thing that you can do once you turn the van off is take it directly inside, someplace cool and out of sunlight.
Got it. Awesome. Wow. So much knowledge. Alexis, are you a silk flower girl or are you a real flower girl? The last question is, when is it okay to use silk flowers versus real flowers? When is it okay to use silk flowers versus real flowers?
So it's okay to use both, right? I think it's okay to use if the client says, hey, I got a preference for silk flower, and that's your thing, right? People who come to me who have a really big request for silk flowers, I'm asking other questions and just kind of seeing how married they are to them. Silk flowers are gorgeous, but there are different levels of silk flowers, right? There are the really cheap ones that you can get, off of Amazon, that you don't probably want to see up close.
Yeah.
Right. And in terms of your wedding florals and photography, there are the cheaper ones. There are those that are in the middle. And then there are very creme de la creme, the very high quality ones. But when I think about the pricing, you're buying those per stem, just like you would, with fresh flowers, you're buying them wholesale and by the bunch, right? So you can get 25 carnations or 25 roses in one package. But if we're talking about carnations and roses that are silk, you are buying those per stem. Even if it is from the wholesaler, you're still buying those per stem, right? Wow. And so you are going to probably spend more money. And for me, I like to use primarily fresh blooms. When I would probably put in the silks are things such as, for wedding work, the sweetheart table. So again, once the couple comes out of the reception, out of the ceremony, and they're going into the reception, that's their first meal together, right? Usually we zhuzh up or design a very over the top kind of look for the florals that are at the sweetheart table. So for picture's sake, and for, it being a focal point for reception, I'll use silk flowers, usually my orchids, my Phalaenopsis orchids, to fill it in and just kind of give it a luxury feel, an elevated feel, and not so basic. That kind of stands apart from the florals that are put on the reception tables. But, silks are good to use as you see fit. If the client obviously wants silk flowers, okay. If you're going to get silk flowers, buy the better ones that you can get locally at like your wholesalers. Jamali Garden here in New York City is great. They have an entire floor with just silk flowers. There are some people online, but keep in mind, right? Ordering online and ordering silks, you're paying for them by the stem. And if you don't have a wholesale or resale cert, on top of shipping and on top of tax, so it can add up. Silk flowers, they're cool. They're nice keepsakes, but not my preference.
Be mindful.
I will use it, be mindful.
Yeah, good. I love that. I love that. Alexis, well, I want to just thank you so much for this beautiful installation. Can you just show us again?
Absolutely.
Oh
so there it is. I'm a little tiny bot, so I know I'm getting lost behind the arrangement, but this is it. I love it so much, I almost fell trying to show it to you. Right, but this is the arrangement. And again, any places that you can still see the tape, we just go around and finish it off with the greenery.
And so this type of arrangement will be suited where? For like what part of like a wedding, reception, a corporate event, or really, all of the above?
Great question. I'd say at first, all of the above. So if you have corporate galas, if you have, baby showers, bridal, any of these types of events where the reception tables are usually the 60-inch or the 72-inch rounds, these are great. Okay. And again, the sizes and the shapes are endless, but in terms of things that are affordable and kind of keeps within a targeted budget, I would focus on either 5x5s for those 72 and 60-inch tables. If they are smaller for like a cocktail hour and they're using high boys, I would do the 4x4. I think I showed that to us earlier, but the 4x4s. Yes. And if you wanted to go a little smaller than that, we have julep cups that are great for cocktail hour, but this is perfect for your round tables, your estate tables, for corporate events, for weddings, definitely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's an honor to have you part of our workshop. Thank you for your knowledge and your time. Thank you.
Thank you for this platform. It's very important that we continue to do this work, that we uplift each other, and that we send the same message of there's room for us all, however that may be, right? In whatever shape, form, and fashion. So I am just as grateful, because sometimes I think planners and floral designers, we can get a little beside ourselves.
Yeah, I think there's some competition at times, right?
Competition, we're all gunning for, I need to be published and have published work, and it was here, and but at the end of the day, it's just as much as that as it is community. So I'm grateful, and I'm so happy to spend some time with you, and I'm hoping that we do it again for the spring.
Absolutely. I'm hoping as well. As we close off, I'm curious, because I can see the passion that you have for your work. What is one thing that you love about your job? Like in terms of running your business, what is one thing? If you can name one thing, what would that be?
The one thing about running the business is, I will say that I'm still very much a solopreneur, but because I'm still in that stage and scaling and growing, I'm able to operate in the world in a very confident way. And I'll leave it with saying, again, when we think about flowers, femininity comes to mind, being very feminine, things that we purchase for women and the women in our lives. But it's interesting because as the industry in general, it's very male dominated in terms of the wholesalers, the suppliers. Floral designers, they may be a lot of females. You may have maybe a couple sprinkles of males, but you know, it's nice to be confident enough to be comfortable, you know, doing something as fun as a floral arrangement, but then being in the setting of being at a wedding venue and setting up an installation, and then being that person who's at the wholesaler, like, no, put those back. No, that's too expensive. No, you know, so I pride myself on knowing all areas of my business such that when I'm out in the flower industry, you know, I wear a different hat and I'm comfortable. And yeah, it's a good thing. It's not a lot of Blacks or women of color doing this, you know, so that's also important for me continuing to do it so that people get that representation of us.
I love it. I love it. My goodness. Alexis Denise, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this private workshop. I hope my students, I hope you all really soaked up everything that we spoke about today. Alexis touched on so many pivotal points, and we certainly will have you guys access this for the next 24 hours. Alexis, want to thank you so much. You all will be able to find Alexis online, add florals online, Alexis Denise. She also has her own workshop, so follow her. We'll provide her information as well, and you guys can be a part of her workshops. Alexis, we want to thank you so much. We wish you very much success for 2022.
Likewise.
Thank you. Yes.
Have a great 2022. And yeah, looking forward to seeing and working with you some more.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.